Revenge films.
My name is Sarah. I live with my husband, Harrison, and my son, Thomas, as a family of 3. My husband was always worried about his parents that lived separately from us, and he would often leave the house saying that he was going to go visit them at home. Seeing my husband like that, I thought he had a side to him that was very thoughtful of his parents and kind. On top of that, because his parents were living off of Social Security, it seemed that they were having difficulty with living costs. So every month we were handing them $500 to support them. My husband didn't have a very high salary, so because of that, I had no choice but to also work full-time. However, he started to come home later and later from work, and even though he should be tired, he would always adore our son. Whenever he had time, he would play with Thomas a lot, and he was a good dad, so even though I had my concerns, I didn't want to bring them up. Then, one day, for the first time in a long time, our whole family of 3 were going to visit his parents' house. When my husband and my son went to the park to play, I started to feel like my in-laws were upset with me about something, and I got uneasy. When my husband came home, for some reason, that became very clear.
We've been meaning to talk to you about this for a while, but because you are living off of our Social Security, we can't support you any longer.
I was shocked, and I told them that I wasn't receiving anything from them. But then my in-laws insisted that they were handing Harrison $500 a month from us. Not only that, but they said that they heard that the reason for this was because I refused to work, and because I was treating myself all the time. I was furious as I got up and told them that Harrison said that he was sending them $500 every single month. But then they said that they've never once received that kind of money. As my husband awkwardly tried to back away, his parents and I confronted him, and he was clearly trying to play dumb. But then, towards the 3 of us who were furious, he raised his voice and said,
"Don't raise your voice in front of my son!"
And as if to run away, he grabbed Thomas by the hand and left. Even after we came home from his parents' house, anytime I would bring up the money, he would storm out of the house, and I wouldn't be able to get a hold of him for a few days while he didn't come home. So the conversation didn't move forward at all as the days went by. Ever since we got married, in order to hand his parents the money to support them, I did everything that I could to save in any way possible. But instead, he was using an excuse that I was spending recklessly in order to trick his parents into giving him money. When I thought about that, I felt like my anger was going to boil everything inside me. Harrison was tricking me and his parents to each give him $500, and I really wanted to know what on earth he was using that money on. But he wasn't coming home at all. So the time just went on with me in this cloud of thoughts. Then one day, on my way home from work, I thought about going to get groceries at a new supermarket in town. So I was driving down a street that I normally don't go through. But then, in front of the casino, I saw the back of a very familiar figure. I stopped the car and had a closer look, and I saw my husband very clearly walking into the casino. I rushed in to follow behind him, and when I got inside, I found my husband, who should have been at work at this hour, gambling. Hey, you! What are you doing? What about your job?
Sarah? What are you doing here?
I dragged my husband outside and asked him to explain the situation, and he insisted that he was just killing some time during his work break. However, it was obvious that my husband was acting suspiciously, and when I asked the employees there, I discovered that he was a regular customer at the casino. My husband was using the $500 from his parents and the $500 from me every month and spending it at the casino. The moment I heard that, I thought about all the times that Harrison came home late by saying that he was busy at work, or all the times he said that he was going to visit his parents, and I knew that he was going to the casino every time. And then I thought about these 5 years of being married to my husband, believing his lies, and desperately supporting him when he came home tired from when I thought it was work, and I became sad. At the same time, my anger towards Harrison was about to make me go crazy. I was furious, and I was going to tell my in-laws everything. And then my in-laws had the same reaction as me, and they were clearly livid towards Harrison. And then we decided to collect $30,000 from Harrison that he had gotten from me and his parents by lying to us. My in-laws and I decided to call Harrison out straight away, but if we told him our true intentions, he would probably try to run away again. So this time we carefully devised a plan. The next week, I left Thomas with my parents, and my in-laws called Harrison to their house by saying that all of the relatives were going to get together. After what happened, the last time we were there, he was trying really hard to get out of it. But I convinced him to go since he hadn't seen his relatives in a long time, and he was reluctantly getting into the car. As we were driving, there were a mountain of things that I wanted to say to my husband, but I held them all in, and I made a pointless conversation with him until we arrived at his parents' house. When we walked into the house, his parents looked like they'd been waiting for us as they welcomed him in.
You're finally here! This time, we're not gonna let you run away!
How dare you fool people into giving you money and spending it on gambling? I don't ever remember raising a child like that.
Someone like you is going to get what they deserve any day now! We're talking about this again? Wait a minute. You brought me here to talk about something that stupid?
What do you mean something stupid? Don't you realize that we believed in you and were giving you money and you betrayed us?
That's so dramatic.
Dramatic? After getting married and fooling people for 5 years, it's amazing that you could say that.
All right, I get it. Just calm down. I'll cut down on my gambling from now on, okay? You really don't need to get that mad.
Planning on quitting the casino? There must be something wrong with you. Along with my in-laws, we told him to return the $30,000 that we had given him until now. But Harrison stood there without an ounce of regret and in turn tried to throw it back at us.
You know that theft by a relative or a spouse doesn't become a crime, right? Don't you know that?
The moment I heard those words, any feelings I had left of possibly forgiving my husband turned to zero. Saying it wouldn't be a crime and refusing to pay any of the money, I served the divorce papers on the spot, and when I told him that we would be getting a divorce and that I would be leaving the house with Thomas, he suddenly started to panic. He said to please just rethink a divorce and started apologizing. Now that he was finally showing some sign of regret, his parents started aggressively lecturing him, and he said that he thought that there would be no problems if nobody found out about it and apologized to them. After we went to pick up our son and came home, Harrison tried to apologize to me multiple times. However, when I told him that I had no intention of forgiving him for what he did to us, he said that he's starting to get angry in return.
Are you trying to separate me and Thomas? A child needs a father!
Having a father that would lie and cheat people like that would only be a bad influence on Thomas anyway.
Are you being serious right now? Why don't you think about how Thomas would feel?
But then Thomas, who was watching our argument, suddenly opened his mouth. I don't want to live with the thief anyway!
Thomas!
When he heard our son's words, Harrison was no longer able to say anything back. He tried to stop me until the very end, but I told him that I can't trust him anymore, and I took Thomas with me back to my parents' house. When I told him to hurry up and turn the divorce papers in, he kept crying, and he said that he didn't want to be separated from his child, and he was avoiding it forever. A few days after Thomas and I left the house, my husband came to my parents' house and apologized through his tears, but my parents had already heard the entire situation and they were furious. They said that there was no way that they would give their daughter or their grandchild back to a husband who would betray people into giving him money, and they kicked him out. I told him that once we get divorced, I would consider giving him visitation rights to Thomas if he would pay child support fees in return, and the money that he stole from his parents and he finally reluctantly went home. After that, Harrison must have fully given up, and he turned in the divorce papers. Even after the divorce was finalized, Harrison contacted me multiple times saying things like, I swear I won't gamble anymore, to try to get back together. But after being fooled by him for so many years, of course there was no way I would easily want to believe him. After losing my additional income, his life would have already been difficult. But on top of that, he had to pay child support fees and the $30,000 back. He could no longer get around any of it, and he tried to ask his parents for help, but he wasn't able to be forgiven by them, and they shooed him away. However, knowing that he was late on child support payments, he would never be able to see Thomas again. He was always desperate to never be late on those payments to me. In the end, he was no longer able to pay rent at the apartment that we were living in as a family, so we had to move into an old, run-down apartment. He was somehow getting by, even though it's hard for him to even find enough to eat. But I'm sure he would be living the rest of his life until he dies in loneliness. As for me, after moving back with my parents, they helped me raise Thomas, and life became a lot easier compared to when I was living with my ex-husband. Due to my parents' wishes, I found a part-time job with shorter working hours than before, so I was able to spend more time with my son and live a much more fulfilling life. I still had a great relationship with my former in-laws, and we would regularly go out to get food with Thomas. They were always thrilled to see how he was growing. Once Thomas got used to his lifestyle, he started looking forward to seeing his grandparents every time. So far, I haven't allowed my ex-husband to see Thomas yet, but if he is going to regain our trust over time, then I plan on allowing them to have regular meetings. Thanks to the child support fees as well as returning the money that he stole from us, we should be able to live comfortably for a while. So I just want to treasure my time with my son.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.